I want you to listen to something. The sound of fireworks. But let's take away the lights for now. The sound seems pretty normal and familiar, but after hearing it for a while, the sporadic bursts and crackling combustions begin to form an invisible nuisance. What if I asked you to listen to this for an hour, a day, or a week? Everywhere you went to, and even when you had to go to sleep, forced to even find it in your dreams. It would become unbearable and exhausting. How would you be able to go about your day? Your normal tasks and interactions would be greatly affected. It's as if you're living in a disorienting reality apart from everyone else, always on edge, at the mercy of the next destabilizing pop, hoping for a moment of silence. While preparing to make the film You Were Never Really Here, director Lynne Ramsay gave a recording of fireworks to Joaquin Phoenix to prepare him for his role. It's an interesting way to introduce someone to the mindset of a person afflicted by a traumatic event. Trauma is a relentless and constant assailant that can intrude in all aspects of a person's life. It's an invisible aggressor with the power of reminding you that it can break you whenever it wants, and that even time has difficulty of silencing it. So how do you show something that likes to remain hidden like trauma? In today's video, we will examine how Lynne Ramsay manages to portray a character suffering from PTSD without addressing it.
It's done.
You Were Never Really Here is a surreal and lean character study that succeeds in giving us access to the broken mind of Joe, a war veteran turned hammer-wielding hitman that saves girls from the seedy underworld of child prostitution, an imposing beast of a man heavily masking his past traumas. He's been recently hired by a senator to find his kidnapped daughter, Nina.
Cleary said you were brutal.
I can be.
When we first meet Joe, he's presented to us in pieces, his face deformed under a plastic bag, his younger self, his hands, a string of tightly shot questionable actions, his lower body moving out of a room, his POV avoiding being seen, his silhouette exiting a hotel, and his features being obscured by his hood and the darkness of the night in the alley. It mirrors how throughout the movie we never get a full picture of who Joe is, or any of the other characters. We only get fragments. Lynne Ramsay has a measured approach to handing out information, like a faint trail of breadcrumbs. Little by little, the pictures and the limited dialogue gives us only a need-to-know basis of the character's background and the relationships with each other, ultimately forming a puzzle with lost pieces. Even the action follows this pattern by hiding the violence and focusing on the brutal aftermath, which parallels Joe. He's a walking aftermath of trauma. The curious thing is that we never have the main character come out and say it. He never mentions it to anyone, and it never comes up from any other character, nor does anyone seem to be aware of it. What Ramsay does is show us the scars and the alarming actions. We only catch glimpses of how he got this way, but we are withheld an explanation. It causes us to pay attention to the visual language she uses, so we can fill in the blanks ourselves. Usually, the easiest way to show someone dealing with trauma would be to have them verbalize it, but that wouldn't be realistic. People don't just willfully say they have a problem. Sure, we see it in movies all the time for dramatic effect and to advance the plot, but most people are bad at communicating, especially about things they're not ready to come to terms with. Most of the time, people won't even admit to themselves that something isn't right, or that they need help, especially someone that's emotionally ill-equipped, like Joe. They might lack the tools necessary to exteriorize it, and if they did, they might be afraid of being judged, or feel ashamed to share something so intimate as, "I don't want to be here anymore."
Joe?
For Joe, this feeling is a daily struggle, and Lynne Ramsay does a great job of showing how routine it is in his life. She has a very particular way of representing it on the script. Interior Joe's bedroom, mother's house, day. Joe sits upright on a chair that he's dragged into an open doorway of the walk-in cupboard. Dry cleaning covers hang by his head, close on Joe's feet. His shoelaces are untied. He uses one foot to lever off a shoe. He places one socked foot onto the floorboards ahead of him. The floorboard creaks as he places his weight. A bare patch of skin above Joe's sock reveals an old but pronounced scar. Joe has a belt looped around his neck. The end of the belt is looped over a clothing rail. He pulls tightly on the belt. This alarming description starts in a very mundane way. We begin picturing Joe sitting down at an open doorway. So far, it's okay. She mentions the dry cleaning covers hanging by his head, still normal. Ramsay details his feet, the floorboards, a scar. This could all be descriptive information, but then she inadvertently reveals Joe has a belt looped around his neck. She purposely lets us know the most important part of the scene at the end, and in the following excerpt as well. Interior Joe's bedroom, mother's house, later. Joe sits on the edge of a bed. He's wearing jeans and a sleeveless t-shirt. His hands wrapped around his own neck, pressure applied to his throat, his face beat red. She starts by presenting the idle aspects of the scene, burying the lead with how Joe is currently suffocating himself. And it's done in a cold mechanical way without urgency or build-up. This word placement is meant for you to imagine the jarring bit of information last, because in this situation, the fact the character is committing self-harm is treated like an afterthought. The closet scene goes unaddressed, and it's followed by a tender yet uneventful moment. Late afternoon sun, Joe and his mother are sat across the corner of the dining table. Open in front of them is a large mahogany cutlery case. They are both engrossed in polishing its contents. Joe's mother sings "Ay, you're adorable" as they clean. They both sing out each letter of the alphabet. The tonal shift creates a contrast that feels out of place. Before the character, both scenes are ordinary, because this is his reality. It's like walking a constant tightrope. You have moments where the traumatic noise can be faint, and others where it's completely unbearable, but the thoughts are always there. The most significant manner the director shows the affliction of trauma is how the narrative is tailor-made to the main character's psyche. We get to be inside of Joe's fractured mind. We see how he struggles to make sense of his reality, because he's living simultaneously in the past and in the present. His body is here, but at any second he can be brought back into a moment of trauma, and anything can set him off. Like tapping on the steering wheel of a car, randomly being asked to take a picture, or just staring into empty space. A look, a feeling, a smell, or a sound can immediately transform him into a helpless child. These invasive memories disorient the character, and the soundtrack follows his instability. We can notice the background music unusually skipping time and stopping. When Joe manages to save Nina, we hear a stable and even calming tone. It's light, warm, and reassuring, but it erupts into a broken mess once she's taken away from him. It's a cacophony of sound and emotion.
Obviously a kid that grew up with a lot of trauma and always felt that he couldn't protect himself or others, so there's obviously this need as you grow older to become as powerful as you possibly could, right? And yet when we meet him, these are in his kind of later days, and he's middle-aged, and so a lot of that has gone away.
At the end of the movie, Joe reaches the mansion where Nina is being kept. Hammer in hand, he quickly brings down all the security detail off screen and makes his way to her room. As he enters for the final confrontation, he finds the villain is already dead, and Nina is nowhere to be seen. We cut back to Joe. The shock fades from his face and gives way to a gamut of emotions. He laughs, he cries, he's full of rage, he's exhausted, he falls apart. There is nothing left of Joe. His internal taunts are revived at a deafening volume. Nina didn't need his protection. He couldn't save his mother, his employer, the girls in the truck, the girl in the desert. He couldn't help any of them. He surrenders to the murky depths of his mind. No matter the effort, no matter the progress, he keeps getting pulled under. We see the thin barrier holding the past and the present erode. He can no longer distinguish between them, because they both feel painfully real. He finds himself opening doors to old wounds, reminding him of one thing. He's powerless. He's still that defenseless boy from so many years ago. Joe wanted to be the hero. He wanted to save the girl. He wanted to have the climactic boss fight, and maybe go out in a blaze of glory. But Lynne Ramsay's focus is not on the hero aspect. This story isn't about getting revenge. It's about the unseen constant struggle with an overpowering internal threat that distorts you from the inside out. You see, this is the story about an exhausted man trying to find a reason to stay.
It's okay, Joe. It's okay.
Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. We invite you to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Until next time.